We know that other countries, in response to one mass shooting, have been able to craft laws that almost eliminate mass shootings.
Really? We could almost eliminate mass shootings, says the president, with common sense gun laws. It must be true, because after the shooting in Oregon, he said this.
We're the only developed country on earth where this happens.
The only country. But that's a myth. The author of Hands Off My Gun says the gun control crowd repeats lots of myths about guns. She's radio host Dana Loesch, and she joins us now from Texas. So, what's a myth?
Almost every single day I hear some sort of myth that comes from the organized, the professional anti-gun lobby. I mean, for instance, what the president just said is that, well, you know, there's no other nation like us, there's no other industrious nation like us that has, you know, mass shootings like this. I mean, don't forget what happened in Norway just a couple of years ago. I mean, that was the single biggest mass shooting in humanity.
69 people killed.
Exactly. Yet they have massive gun control. In Australia, there still have been mass shootings. And of course, there was the situation at the Lint coffee shop. And of course, in the UK, they've still had
I'm told
mass
in
shootings.
Australia they had a mass shooting. They passed tougher laws. They actually confiscated some people's guns. And everything's better. And in fact, crime is down in Australia.
Well, and it's so interesting that you mentioned that, John, because private gun ownership level in Australia is actually back to what it was pre-1996 confiscation levels. That's something that they conveniently omit.
And in lots of places where they legalize guns, so they allow concealed carry permits, crime and gun crime drop. Dramatically they do. I mean, that's called the Florida model. Florida was the first state to implement this, and all the other states were really paying attention to what was happening to Florida's crime rate, because an armed society is a polite society. I mean, criminals aren't going to pick soft targets. I mean, anyone with common sense knows this. And surveys of prisoners do find that the prisoners say, I'm much more scared of a victim who's packing than I am of the police. Yes, absolutely, because they know if they see an individual who, you know, if they see a woman who is just, you know, out and about and she's armed, they know that that woman's going to fight to defend her life. She's going to protect herself. All right, but people where I live, they have a tough time getting their brain around this. More guns? This just accidents. People are going to get drunk and shoot each other. My left-wing neighbors are upset about what they call assault weapons now, and the upset people include our next president.
Do you think that reinstating the ban on assault weapons and banning high-capacity magazines would do any good?
Yes, I do. I do.
Good.
You know,
And they all applaud, and there's this hysteria about assault weapons. Who needs an assault weapon to defend themselves? And you say? They can't define what is or is not an assault weapon. It's a made-up unicorn term, John. It's a meaningless term. You could have an assault knife. I mean, you can have a semi-automatic firearm, or you can have a select fire capability going fully automatic firearm. I mean, those are your choices. But the problem is that you have all of these firearms illiterate people. They think that just because you have a black rifle that has a rail and has a scope on it, has a pistol grip, it makes it shootier, and that, of course, must mean that it's fully automatic. That's not the case. These are gun illiterate people. There is semi-auto and there is fully automatic. Those are your choices. You have military fully
authorized
automatic
firearms.
Is a machine gun.
Yeah, fully
Semi-automatic means you have to keep pulling the trigger.
Yeah, fully automatic means you pull the trigger once and it goes until you release the trigger. Semi-automatic means with each squeeze of the trigger, you get a bullet for each squeeze. There's this internet meme making fun of this assault weapon fear. A tale of one rifle shows these two guns, A and B, and the second one is what they call an assault rifle and is illegal according to some of the laws because it has a collapsible stock and a pistol grip, but it's the same gun? Yeah. They're cosmetic features. The assault weapons ban simply stipulated that if you have this rifle and you put 3 or more cosmetic features on it, it's going to be rendered illegal because it does nothing to change the machinations of the firearm. The firearm still operates the same. It shoots the same. It's still a semi-automatic firearm. But if you add these accessories, somehow it makes it more lethal. It just didn't make sense. I'm told 40% of gun sales are done without a background check. That's false. That was the statistic back in the 90s before the Brady bill went into effect. Now it's about fewer than 5%.
It's way fewer than that, but even then, we're putting a lot of faith in a background check system that's incredibly fraudulent. Just like the terror watch list, where you had reporter Stephen Hayes, you had Teddy Kennedy, you had John Lewis on that terror watch list. In fact, one of the things whenever you hear either Democrats or you hear anti-gun advocates, whenever they say, well, you know, we were able to stop X amount of criminals from purchasing firearms, there are so many false flags. If your name is too similar, if your name is too long, they count all of them as a whole in their statistics. And so we're relying on a system that's incredibly flawed, and people are talking about expanding an already flawed system.
Finally, I'm told if you need defense, call 911. You call that a myth?
Calling 911, you have to wait on average, John, 20 minutes. I had an incident where a firearm protected my life. My grandparents called the law, and it was about 45 minutes before the law showed up. They lived in a rural area in Missouri out in the Ozarks, but thankfully my grandfather was armed. 20 minutes average response time for when you call 911. You are your own first responder.
Thank you, Dana Loesch.
Thank you, John.